Howdy, this is Maybe We're Just Rambling. I'm Stuart,
I'm Rebecca.
and this is our podcast where we just kind of go off the cuff sometimes and ramble about whatever we want to.
We've had very structured episodes the last 4 episodes or so, and
specific topics.
yeah, because we were doing specific things and it was appropriate for what we had going on. But I think we've kind of hit not a plateau per se, but we've come to a calm spot in the waters, and there just isn't as much happening, and it kind of gives us some space to be a little bit more creative and try to come up with something a little bit less structured for this episode, because regardless of how it comes across, I feel like we went into the last few episodes with like such a definitive plan, and for this one we really don't have so much of a one, which is either going to be a lot of fun or an absolute mess. I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but before we get started, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm really cold.
You're cold?
Yeah.
It's 73 degrees in here.
I know. I think we sat outside and the cold just kind of like sank into my bones. So
life update. We have traveled all the way from Texas to Idaho now, and we are stationary through the end of October. We're doing a work camping gig at an awesome ranch in west central Idaho. And we're having a really good time. We're being able to stay busy. We're in a beautiful area. We did get snowed / sleeted on trying to get a fire going earlier.
Yeah.
We did get it going.
You know, I expected there to be some cooler weather, like I really, really did, but I did not expect it to be going into the second week of May and for it to still be so, like, mild.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been in the 70s some days.
Which has been awesome.
A lot of days you wake up and it's in the 30s.
Yeah,
and then by the time we have our coffee and crawl out to do our duties, we're not really rushed out of the door, and it's usually in the 40s to 50s by then. And a lot of the weather's been good. It's just, when you see it coming, it's gonna come.
That is one really cool thing. I think because of the way the mountains are situated, you can really see the weather come rolling over, and you can look down the valley and see the rain or the snow or whatever it is hitting that mountain peak, and in either direction depending on which way it's coming from, and then okay, we've got about 30 minutes before it hits us. And then I think with the mountain side literally right across the river from us, I was standing in the maintenance shed yesterday, and it was raining really, really hard, and I could just see like the sheets of rain just blowing with the wind against the mountainside. It's really incredible.
Yeah, this is a really awesome experience that we put ourselves in the way of, and it worked out. We had a lot of hard work that got us here, and a lot of crazy things happened, including what we talked about last time.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to our last episode, we talked a lot about safety on the road and safety traveling and just living in an RV in general, and some of the things that we do to protect ourselves and help keep ourselves safe, because crazy things can happen out on the road, and we shared a story about something that happened to us just like about a month ago. So if you haven't listened to it, definitely go back and check it out, listen to it for yourself, because I think it's really important to kind of stress the safety aspect of it at least once or twice, because like I said, you don't want a bad experience to completely destroy this lifestyle for you. But we're sitting down to record this one a little bit late. Technically, we should have had an episode out like Friday or something, but I mean,
oh my gosh,
schedules and that kind of thing have just completely fallen by the wayside, and I'm trying not to keep myself or try to force myself to adhere to a hard and fast schedule, because it's so difficult to do that.
You mean force me to?
Well, yeah, and then drag you along into the chaos that I create.
You just gotta drag me. Yep.
So I'm trying not
miserable doing this.
I'm trying not to do that. Well, I mean, I do feel like sitting down today, it was mostly my idea to record this, so I do appreciate you being willing to like sit down and do this, especially considering the fact that it's about 9:30. So
I'm kind of moody. For just a behind the scenes peek at this, it takes a while to gear me up for it sometimes. We were laying on the bed after Rebecca took a nap.
This was several hours ago.
This was hours ago. It's like, do you want to take the dogs for a walk with me? It's like, yeah, I need to eat a snack though. So then I ate a snack, and then about 45 minutes later, we went for a walk.
Nobody could accuse you of like rushing around.
Yeah. And then we got back, and then you're like, hey, I already got brews in the fridge. Do you want to record an episode? It's like, I haven't eaten yet. You're like, oh. It's like, wait, you ate? You're like, yeah. It's like, all right, well, I need to eat. An hour later, I'm done eating. I need 30 minutes then to veg.
It's interesting, isn't it, how we live in such a small space, and yet I'll be doing something, or I'll like kind of go off on my own tangent and do my own thing for the day inside the RV, and you will have no idea. Oh, you ate dinner? Oh, you were editing a video? Oh, you did, whatever, fill in the blank, and I'll be like, yeah. And it's not as if we were separated during that time. Like, we were within an arm's reach of each other, but it's like we just zone out so completely.
Yeah, a perfect example of that is apparently you watched like the whole first season of Friends without me.
Well, do we want to tell everybody why I was watching Friends? I don't know if I told you. I was watching it while I was doing someone's homework.
While she was helping do someone's
Yes, while I was helping someone get through the end of the
semester. No, you were helping someone do theirs. You weren't helping do it like that. All right. I have a severe procrastination problem, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast.
Well, I don't know. We're flying low and loose today, so maybe it'll come up later on. But yeah, I was doing homework, and no offense to you or anything, but I don't need to like focus as heavily on certain things as you do. So it was like, if I can have a show on in the background and just like mindlessly knock out some things, I'm gonna do that. And I really, really do like Friends. And I found a website that if you can like click out of the pop-ups fast enough, then you can watch every single season, every single episode of Friends in HD for free.
Kind of like I did with ER.
Yeah, pretty much. So the internet's a wonderful thing sometimes. Yeah. But I thought today, and this was totally my idea, so I really am thankful that you were willing to do this with me, because this is like the kind of thing that I really enjoy doing. I thought today it would be fun if we just kind of sat down and rambled, like really rambled about random life stuff.
This might never hit the air, folks.
I think it will. I think I think this is going to be a good conversation, and I like doing this kind of thing because it gives us a chance to really like sit down and pick each other's brains about something, and I mean, we've been together for like nearly 5 years now, and I think we know each other better than anyone knows us, but at the same time, it's like, to have conversations dedicated to these kinds of topics, most people don't usually set aside that time. So if we can do that, I really, really want to, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, you never know.
So do you want to go ahead and get into it? I can start.
Sure. So is this a question and answer format?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
And I guess I'll start asking you some questions, and then if you have questions for me, then you can ask me.
Just do a series to me, and then I'll do a series to you, or is it back and forth?
Whatever.
Yeah, we're not doing super structured. Okay.
So let's start with like a nice deep question first.
Whoa.
What do you think, in your opinion, in your own words, what do you think is your purpose for being alive on planet Earth at the time that you are? That is a deep question, I know.
42. My purpose for being alive on this earth at this time is to be a good steward of the earth. And I'm just going to go ahead and be religious right off the bat for you then. And it's to give glory to God in whatever way I can. I think that's what it is, to be thankful and to be a good caretaker for the place that I've been set.
Do you think, do you believe that you exist now in this specific time for a specific purpose? Do you, like, for example, if you'd been born, in the 1950s or in the 1830s or at whatever time, do you think that you would have continued on with that in that same kind of trajectory, or do you think that there is a very specific reason why you exist now?
I think the setting doesn't really change a whole lot of it, and to me it's kind of like you grow where you're planted.
Hey, that's my line.
Yeah, it is. Oh,
hmm
yeah.
But it's true. I agree. I think that's 100% true.
Yeah, I mean, we could be in the 1600s being settlers and trying to be a good steward of the land and care for everything as God intended.
And I think you're right, because like if you look just over the course of human history and the different challenges that we as a species have overcome, the different issues that we've faced as a society, and the different cultural wars that have come and gone. When you look at all of those things, the date on the calendar, and the technology that's available to us has obviously changed and evolved, but at its core, I don't feel like any of those issues are really, like, there's nothing new under the sun, you know?
Yeah, war is war, peace is peace,
Mm-hmm.
and settlement and expansion
Mm-hmm.
are just a way of life throughout the course of Earth's history.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that that's so true. Okay, second question. We'll kind of scale it back a little bit and be a little bit less serious.
Okay.
Anyone who's listening, we may get into some spoilers here, so if you are not up to speed, this would be your chance to kind of like skip ahead a little bit. We're going to talk about 1883 for just a second. Not the time in history, but the TV show. So
Okay.
Stuart and I are huge fans of the Kevin Costner show Yellowstone, and they've done a spin-off of that show called 1883. They only did one season, and it's about the same family, and they're going to do some other spin-offs too that I think we're pretty excited about.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that show, and like the direction that the writer Taylor Sheridan took everything in, and how he just went about like coming to a conclusion in that show, like the pace and everything? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, to go from the most present and then back, the purpose was clearly to show where that family ended up settling,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because where Elsa, the daughter, died.
Mm-hmm.
She picked her burial place. And then going back from that, they basically ended up grouped with another couple people who were bringing immigrants all the way to Oregon, and that went horribly.
Mm-hmm.
How that show was organized was very. It was a long journey that they had to make very fast.
Yeah, they had to cram it into 10 episodes.
They had to cram it into a miniseries. And so there's not a whole lot of lulls of boringness, which is probably good for the show. But the love and heartbreak and as you say, the tornado, was just, a lot of that was really retarded. But I think it was a pretty accurate depiction, not more so of settlers, but more so of how raising children was back then, and how challenging it was. And so I liked seeing that kind of like peek into how it probably was 150 years ago.
Yeah, the show made me like Tim McGraw and Faith Hill as actors. I mean, obviously, I love their music, both independently and together. Like, they're just such a power couple in, like, the country music scene. But, I mean, prior to that, like, my opinion of Tim McGraw as an actor was kind of like, he's okay. Like, I hadn't really ever seen him in anything that I really, really liked. Like, he was the dad in Flicka, and he was the dad in, Friday Night Lights, and played two completely different types of dads
I liked
of those.
I liked his grit. I did think it was a very good cast.
Yes, but yeah, in 1883 he plays like a very different kind of, and I really enjoyed seeing that. And I didn't know that Faith Hill acted, and I really thought that she was good. And to be honest, I kind of wish that they would have focused a little bit more on their relationship
Yeah.
and like their experience coming to Texas and then heading further west, and like their dreams and hopes for the future, because you really like you got like sneak peeks at that, but really not a lot. Like it was so much focused on Elsa, and not that that was a bad thing, because it was like I think Taylor Sheridan did that because it was all about like a new world and like through the eyes of the young and like the newer generations and blah blah blah. I kind of understand that, but he made some odd choices, like
Okay.
from a writer. Maybe it wasn't him, maybe he had like a different vision and the directors and producers took it a different way. That's a very real possibility. But like, yeah, there was this scene where there was this tornado ripping across the open prairie, and I didn't even think about that being something that happened, like people, settlers in covered wagons having to deal with tornadoes.
Shoot.
But I guess it probably must have happened.
Yeah.
And that was really, really scary. And I really enjoyed that scene. Up until the point where there's this Comanche native that's like got Elsa and these two other cowhands like hunkered down on this hill, and she like, I don't even know,
They
like
end
she's
up,
so
like,
terrified
they
that
end
she
up-
starts making out with
yeah,
him.
they end up on top of each other and kissing when the tornado goes over them.
Yeah, and it was just so like it. I guess that if I was 16 years old, I would have loved that. So maybe I'm just like I'm too old and grumpy now to really
Yeah.
buy into that. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I just didn't buy it. It was so tacky. And then from that point on, it was really, really hard for me to get into the character of Elsa. But maybe that's a good thing, because I'm not gonna lie, like the ending of that show was hard.
Yeah, it was ended super well.
Yeah, I really did like the way that they ended it, but it like the like father-daughter relationship that they depicted between Elsa and what was his name? Jacob or
James?
James, yeah, James Dutton.
James. Yeah.
Was so, I don't know, as a daughter who is very close to her father, I like that just really hit me in my heart. So that ending where they're together, like, I don't know, it really did. And I'll be honest with you, I've been thinking about that ending since we finished that show, and that was like 2 weeks ago.
Man.
Because, like, it really just, if that show doesn't make you think about, like, your place on this planet and your purpose for being here, and how you fit into the fabric of life, and then also what happens when you die, like, I really don't know what will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess, like, I'd love to ask you, like, do you ever, like, how often do you think about death?
I think about death separate from myself. In that when I die, it's not going to be necessarily me that dies, but it's my physical body, but my soul it never dies. It lives on, goes to another place. But I think commonly of death associated to me, like for instance, if you died, or if a member of my family died, and like the loss in physical presence. But I don't really super connect it to myself unless I relate it to other people. Like if I died, you would be alone. That kind of thing. I don't really think about myself dying. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But how often do you think about death? Like, how often does it cross your mind? Like, once a month, once a week?
You mean connected to me, or
Just like the idea of dying, death and dying, like as a concept.
It's very rare.
Really?
Yeah, it's once every 3 to 6 months.
Wow. I think about it a lot.
Well, here, let me flip the script and ask you, why does your heart beat? Why do you exist? And what is your purpose?
So I believe that our purpose for existing is literally to love. like the, that philosophical question is like, what is the meaning of life? Lots of people have debated that question in greater minds than you or I. But I truly believe that the purpose of life is to love and to be a manifestation of love, which sounds very like hippy dippy, but it's actually very hard.
Love for what?
Love for our fellow man, love for the planet that we call home, love for other living things, and insofar as much as you possibly can. Like, I don't mean like the hippy dippy peace and love man kind of love. I mean like the really hard, sacrificial kind of love, like the kind of the reflection of like Jesus Christ on the cross kind of love. Like, we are here to
That's interesting.
to sacrifice ourselves for each other, and to, I mean, I think you see that play out in like really solid relationships, right? Like,
yeah, you have to deal with a lot when it comes
like,
to me.
but you to me too. Like, yeah. we kind of like die unto ourselves for the other person in a million different ways every single day, and I see that represented in my own parents' marriage as well, and just like friendships too. Like friendships, non-romantic relationships, I think, are the same way. And you just, in order to maintain these relationships and to kind of grow and expand out from yourself, it requires sacrifice, and it requires a very selfless kind of love. And I think the entire purpose of being on this earth is to love in that way. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's very indicative of how you are. You're a very selfless person. So that does make sense. And what do you think about dying?
Well, I think it crosses my mind, just the idea of it, like the idea of that like very abrupt break in like the chain of events throughout a person's life. It's like the person is living and they're doing these things and they're going about their day and blah 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 blah, and then there's an event, and it's very I'm making like a knife gesture with my hand. Like it really kind of
sudden?
Yeah, it's sudden, and it severs their connection to like the existence that we know, and then they go on and they are like out of our line of sight. And I think about that a lot, and especially like I get this. So for myself, like I'm not scared of dying for myself. I think because I've been so close to death before. Like, you think about it, it's like, wow, that's scary, like death. Ooh, I don't want to die. But I can tell you, at least it's been my experience, that when you get really close to death and it's like right there, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just another thing that's going to happen, and it's totally fine, and it's nothing to worry about, and it's not a big deal, and it's not scary. It's just like, oh, this is the next thing that's going to happen. It's like, it's so inevitable that it doesn't matter. Like, there's no point in being scared of it.
So you connect it. I mean, you have a good reason for it. You connect it very personally, and I've not been quite there, and so I connect it in a way of like how it impacts other people instead of me personally.
Well, yeah, but like here's the thing though, like I'm not scared of dying for myself, but when I think about like losing people close to me, or dying and then not being there for the people that I love, like that like wrecks me.
Yeah.
I mean, like
we're
I
the same
can't deal.
There. Yeah, we're the same there.
And like there's this every once in a while, not often because I can like think my way through it and like calm down, but every once in a while, and it's usually as I'm falling asleep at night, I'll have this like random thought that will come into my head, and it's like, you are going to cease to exist. And it just hits me like a ton of bricks, and it's like, whoa.
I've known that a couple times. Yeah.
And it's just like this really crazy thought that comes into my head. It's like, you will cease to exist. No bones about it. And that's like really shocking and really jarring, because it's like, whoa, like, because we're so tied to our sense of identity and our sense of self. So yeah, it's interesting. And I kind of feel like I really need to work on, this is going to sound weird, I need to work on making friends with death. Like, I need to work on being okay with death, because I feel like there's a significant part of me that really, really struggles with death and dying, and the idea of death. Not because I lack faith, or I don't think that, like, good people go to a good place or anything like that. Like I 100% believe in an afterlife and in heaven and all that stuff. It's just the idea of it and how final it is and how there's like no coming back from it, and you're separate, and that separation is really scary.
Yeah, so we differ there, and I feel like I'm separated right now. Not that like this sounds kind of cliche, but like my destiny is to die, clearly.
Yeah. None of us are making it out of here alive.
Yeah, we're not getting out alive. But I almost feel like this is, to do what I can while I'm here, and then I'm in my permanent life.
Oh yeah.
And so that separation is kind of reversed from what yours is, maybe. And it's like I'll get to see my grandpas and grandmas and great uncles, great aunts, everybody that I've always heard about, like the people that have helped shaped my folks, my family, everybody into who they are, and then me into who I am. I'll get to see like all of my heritage, dating back, thousands of years. Yeah. And I feel like, not that I feel disconnected and like death is some glorious thing, but I think a more glorious thing awaits. Yeah. And so I don't feel that separation from like worrying about death. That's why like death to me, like I think about it as it relates to other people and me, not me individually.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think you're like so unbothered by the idea of your own demise?
Well, I don't see it as demise.
Like, well, I don't mean like I guess you're just not super tied to.
I'm not tied to my physical body.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because, like, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that you feel that way?
I think it has to do with my faith. And just my ideology for our existence and creation and where we're destined to be. Like in God's eyes, we're all just equals. We're like best friends. And
you mean you and God are equals
no,
best friends? Or you
no,
mean
I mean
you
like
and other people?
you and I,
okay.
You and me and other people and I.
Yeah.
Sorry, bad grammar. We're all just really good friends and acquaintances, and all those barriers that you have with people that one you maybe don't care for a bunch, or ones that you're not able to be around, all of that will be like cease. All of that will cease to exist whenever we're in our next life. And so, not that I look forward to death, but that I think that it can. I don't think I would be put in something that was permanently detrimental to me, like to my mental health, physical health, all those things. I don't think God would put me somewhere like that without reason. So I think it's somewhere good. I see it as better than here. I see glimpses of it here. And so.
That's a really lovely idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So what were you taught as a child about like your purpose for existing? And was it basically like all this that we've already said, and like you just have internalized that so completely?
That's the part that I probably internalized the most. And like taught as a young person, it was essentially along the lines of getting as close to God as you can, and being a disciple to all nations, to all peoples, and to share my experience and connection in the things that it will give me.
So what does that mean to you when you say like to be a disciple? Like how does that physically manifest? Like are you walking around with the Bible going, read the good word, brother? Or is it like,
no,
like how for you do you walk that?
So it differs with everybody because everybody has different levels of comfort and experience and knowledge. but I don't walk around like thumping a Bible on people's forehead. That's not my style. I think I more so I've gotten kind of good, especially the last couple of years, I think, with flirting the idea of things to people that I feel like some kind of connection to. Like, it's not the thing that I'm going to go to and like break the ice with. It's like, hey, brother, have you heard about Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I don't walk up and do that. But I think in certain circumstances, it can draw like personal relationships that I have closer. And I can like share like my experiences and knowledge, and I can try and be a good representation of what I think we were meant to be here as humans. And a lot of that is by things that you don't say.
That's true. Leading by example and all that.
Yeah, like I don't want to be known as a drunkard. I don't want to be known as I don't know, like an abuser, a murderer, anything like that. And so
a menace to society.
Yeah. And so it's trying to avoid being all those things that that people that are not as close to God probably are. Generally a trend.
Ooh, so then I have a really good question for you next then.
Okay.
So do you think that, like, let's take someone who's like a murderer or an abuser.
Okay.
Do you think that somebody like that,
you know, the answer
is incapable of walking as closely with God as maybe you are?
No. No. God is full of grace. I think that you can do some very terrible things, and at the root of it, if you have a good heart and you realize to your core that you've done wrong things, and the only person that knows in your heart is you and God, is that if you repent, I think God is full of grace. There are people that their physical bodies should not be allowed to remain on the earth because they've been a menace for various reasons. And I think that still our bodies and our souls can be different in that regard, because you can have a really good soul and be in very bad circumstances and do very bad things. And if your soul is repetitive, I think that there's a place for you in the afterlife of glory.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was really well said. I don't think I could really say anything other than that. I would just like be a pile-on to what you already said. But I agree with you. And we've had so many awesome conversations because you were raised Southern Baptist. I was raised Roman Catholic. So we come from similar, like we were, both raised Christian, but like when you get down to like the details and the finer points, like there's so many differences in how we were raised and like how we view the Bible, how we view religion, and just everything.
All kinds of doctrine. That's been put in place
dogma,
since,
and it's so interesting. And we've had so many awesome conversations about that.
Oh yeah, we've had dozens of hours.
Going like really, really deep into it. What has your view of, as you've like gotten older and like had more experiences and gotten out in the world, has your view of organized religion, and maybe we can just narrow it down because you can only speak to what you know, but like Christianity, has it like changed or evolved or altered in any way, and if so, how?
So growing up, it was being in church every single Sunday. Even if we were on vacation, we found a church to go to. And I really appreciate that looking back, more than I thought I would. Having said that, I think that just in general, a lot of the humanistic qualities that have followed along with organized religion are actually detrimental in our relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have changed in the way that, for one, we're not very tied down, and so I don't feel super a part of any one community, like, say, one church in one place. So that's really difficult, and I do miss that. But at the same time, I don't necessarily... I think it's a great idea, the fact that we can be... that people can be all gathered in one place, and hear the gospel and share presence. But I think that, personally speaking, it'd be very mistaken to say that you have to go to church to be a good Christian. There's just so many human
factors.
Human factors that have followed along with organized religion. And I'm not just talking about the terrible people that you hear about on the news and this and that. But to me, it's personally a lot of the doctrine that's been put in place that was, as some would say, divinely inspired, and I would say that it's well after the fact, and it's a brand new religion, even if it's a couple hundred years old or decades old, whatever. Is that it's what's the right word for it? It's like we have all these false prophets, and we have all this doctrine that people say that they got together and created this, but really it kind of takes away from the personal experience that I enjoy with God. So
yeah, I mean, we don't have to get like super into the details or anything like that, but
it's turned into a religious podcast.
I know. If this turns anybody off, I'm so sorry, but like, this is a big part of our life and like our identities, and like this is something that you and I have spent so much time talking about, and it's going to come up, like our spirituality, our spiritual lives, our religious backgrounds, like it forms a major part of the fabric of who we are. So I'm like, I would never apologize for that or anything. So, you know, if this turns anybody off, like, I completely understand. I know this isn't for everybody, but I think that this is a worthwhile conversation to have.
If nothing else, folks, this is just it's just all the neurons that fire in our head. Yeah. And I fully respect someone for believing something different.
Oh,
I don't think they're lesser people.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the United States of America, right? We have the freedom of religion, or we're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, like, I was going to say, like, we don't have to get into details or anything, but I understand why you believe what you do, because knowing what you witnessed growing up, like, you've seen a church fall apart, you've seen a church split, and people become divided, and that it's really, really unfortunate that that kind of thing happens, because, like, that's not really what, in my opinion anyway, it's not what being a Christian's about.
No,
like,
it isn't what our human identity was as we were placed here, I think.
Yeah, and it's really, really sad, but again, it's that, like, fallen human nature, or just, you know, the humanness of who we are, and our pride and our egos that we bring into it. And I mean, you see that happen across all spectrums of religion, Christian and otherwise. Like, it has been happening since the beginning of time. And it's really, really interesting, and I think it's continuing to happen, and you can see it playing out in tiny churches and massive religions all around the world. And it's really, really interesting. You put your finger to that pulse a little bit, and it's interesting what you can kind of see.
So I want to ask you a couple deep questions, but before then, I want to go get a brew out of the fridge. You want to take a break?
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. So we've been on a little bit of a seltzer kick lately.
Don't take my man card.
I think lots of people are drinking seltzer these days. I don't think there's anything not manly about it. And you know, I like beer. I'm not an anti-beer person. I like wine.
You used to be.
I used to be. You taught me how to drink it. There's a little bit of a
like
technique.
an alcoholic.
Well, there's a little bit of a technique. Like you kind of like you have to let it fall over your tongue, and you have to like open your mouth afterwards, and clear your throat. Like there's a whole thing. But beer, it tends to be a little bit bloaty. Wine is okay every now and again, but I don't know. I don't always love it.
You didn't grow up drinking Budweiser heavy then, did you?
No, I absolutely did not. I mean, I don't think I really drank until I was in the Navy, which is no surprise, I'm sure, to anybody. But we've been on a little bit of a seltzer kick, and we did the Trulies, and the Trulies were good, but you made the point.
Sweet.
Yeah, they're super sweet, and it was kind of just like drinking juice. And we realized there were only like 4% alcohol, which was why we were like pounding them down. And it was like, man, I don't feel anything. Which is not to say that we're like hardcore drinkers, but it's just not a lot. So we switched to White Claws, and they're not bad. I like the fact that they're, you know, on the lower end for calories and that kind of thing.
But these suckers are 8%.
Which is nice, because I can have one, and I'm just like, okay, that's all I need, and I feel good. I don't need to, like, I don't need to get swifty or anything, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's what we're drinking right now.
Let me ask you about... Have you seen the movie Avatar?
Mm-hmm. It's a good one. We should watch it again. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Okay. Yeah, we watched the movie I wanted to today. The Proposal.
It was good. I liked it a lot. I really like Sandra Bullock. I want her ponytail.
Sassy.
Very.
Yeah. But, like Avatar, you know how they take their tail and put it in and connect it with...
Like everything?
The tree, whatever, all that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think that anything like that exists in a human form? And is it like books or something like that everybody's like putting like a piece in?
Like a thread that kind of a common thing that connects us all?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say yes and no. So are you talking just about like something that you can physically see, or are you talking about like something beneath the surface?
Everything. Like throw in psychology too.
So I think obviously there's mediums like art and music and literature that connect us across generations and across continents and that kind of thing. Like I always think it's really, really cool when I hear about an author who's had their books translated into like, you know, hundreds of different languages, because that really speaks to the quality and caliber of their work, and the fact that it can cross over so many, like what would be to most people barriers. They can cross over those and connect and unite people. So I think there's that, but then on a deeper, like more intrinsic level, I think that there's something that connects all of us. And maybe you could think of it as like our human experience, or you could think of it as something in our souls that's like connecting you to me to, you know, whoever. But I don't think that most people are aware of it. And I think that people who are calling for peace, and people who are, you know, activists for ending war and ending violence and that kind of thing, I think that on a certain level they recognize that common thread, and that's why they are so motivated to try to end human suffering and end atrocities, regardless of how futile that effort may be. They see that. I actually had a really, really cool experience years ago that like really altered my perception of the world and like how I relate to everything in it. And I was totally sober when it happened, which is crazy. I was just having a conversation with somebody about life and just like our place in the world. And maybe it was a conversation kind of like this, but it was like the first really deep conversation that I had with somebody about something like this. And I don't know, it was just like a switch flipped in my brain, and all of a sudden it was like I could see this almost like web connecting you and me and all of the animals and all of the plants and the rocks and this earth. And literally everything, regardless of whether or not people recognize it and see it. I firmly believe that we are all so incredibly intertwined and connected, which is why, you can have things like generational pain and generational suffering, which is something that they talk about in like Reiki healing and that kind of thing. It's like you can go and do like a Reiki session, and the practitioner can work with you to work through like generational suffering. So something that like an ancestor of yours went through that carried on through the bloodline, whether it be like some type of abuse or some type of like maybe alcoholism or even something deeper than that, and they can work with you to heal that. And I think on a global scale we have that too. That's really, really deep.
Yeah, that's
but like I really do believe that is, and it's interesting too, because like we can kind of to put it in a term that I think you would understand a little bit better. Like, in Christianity people talk about like the body of Christ. And that's something that we always talked about in Catholicism too. It's like the head and the members of the church are like the feet and the hands and blah blah blah. Like you can go as deep with it as you want to, but it's that same idea. Like it's the same idea, just like in a more digestible format. Like we are all connected.
See, being the body of Christ is even hard for me to digest, but that's a different.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, it's the same idea, it's like,
yeah,
like you would say, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I would say what I just said, which
body of Christ,
which is like, well, no, the tangent that I went off on, saying we're all brothers and sisters in Christ is a whole lot easier and more direct than what I spent the last 2 or 3 minutes explaining.
Yeah, well, yeah, in my mind, I'm like thinking, all right, there is like a snowshoe hare in the tundra that Rebecca is connected to.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there trying to figure out if I sit still enough, will that fox go away? Rebecca, what do I do?
I mean, it's not as direct as that, but yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, and on a certain level too, like that's why like I don't eat meat. And like that's very much tied into my philosophy on everything. Like it's ethics and philosophy and everything.
But what about all the plants you're connected to?
I know. Well, but here's the thing too. Like because we live on this earth, and we're so tied into the system of this planet, like we cannot help but have an impact. Like there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
And I always kind of have to chuckle at people who are like, oh, I cause no harm. I believe in causing no harm. And it's like, I hear you and I see you and I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're like missing the point.
The land that you occupy could have been an animal's.
Exactly. Or it belonged to someone else at some point, and your ancestors came and waged war and took it for themselves.
All land is at its root stolen.
Exactly. And the space that we occupy once belonged to someone else, and it will belong to someone after we're gone.
I'd argue this is probably Nez Perce Indians.
I mean, I would say so.
We're in the Nez Perce National Forest.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. But like you can't escape that.
Yeah.
And so
to say you have no harm is kind of foolish.
Yeah, and it's just ignorant. But to say, oh, there's nothing that I can do because I'm going to have an impact anyway is it's a fallacy. I'm trying to remember the name of the fallacy. It's like an appeal to futility fallacy. It's like there's nothing that I can do, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
That's not right either. There's a balance.
Somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
In the middle is a healthy thing.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I view it. That's the long form.
This conversation, it's literally been what we could sit here and talk without microphones about.
I know. And like when we started talking about doing this podcast, like these were the kind of conversations that I wanted to have. Not to say that like I don't enjoy talking about travel tips and safety and RVing and maintenance and blah blah blah. Like all that stuff is really, really good too. But this is the kind of thing that's like my bread and butter.
Yeah, these are the hashtag deep rambles.
Yeah.
Oh geez. Now you got me suckered in. We've been doing all the cool stuff, and now you finally got me on this trend of doing the deep stuff, and it's what you wanted all along. I'm stuck now, folks. Oh boy.
Well, I mean,
Help.
in my defense, we've been together long enough that you should have probably seen this coming. You know that I'm not a surface level kind of person. I like to dive deep every chance that I get.
But there's nothing I can do about it.
No.
Like
Ooh, I
stuff.
have a question for you.
Oh.
Maybe we'll do a couple more and then we'll wrap
Okay.
this up because we could sit here for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Do you believe in aliens? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Define alien.
A living, breathing, sentient being from someplace else in the cosmos coming down in a spaceship and visiting the Earth. I'm not talking about microorganisms on Mars.
I do not believe in aliens.
Really? Why?
I understand that the Bible is a very historical document, and it is not perfect in that it was written by man in a lot of places, but I think that's a pretty accurate depiction of how all of life began. It was not just an accident. It wasn't just a freak thing. And I think it takes an even more incredible set of circumstances than we can fathom to create true life.
So do you think like the reality that we are sitting in is the only reality? Like, do you think, let me
Say
put it
that
to you,
again
let me
another
put
way?
it to you a different way.
I went
Do you
cross-eyed.
think the world that we are existing in is the only world? Or do you think that there are other worlds that we can't see? And I'm not talking about on a cellular level.
You mean like other dimensions
Yes,
in our own,
yes.
in on Earth?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the dimension. I don't. It's kind of not it goes off the kooky side of things, but in that I think we can see a lot of things if we are looking through the right lens, and that people's minds on, say, like things that for like hallucinating, it transcends those normal, those actual dimensions that exist. And I think that what we have, we might not fully understand it, but what we are in is the dimension of living beings.
So what about like heaven and hell? Like where are they? Like are they actual legitimate places that you go to?
Oh dang,
like
man,
dimensions,
you're gonna make me like put my foot in my mouth. Because I thought we were talking about like the physical, like living as we're looking at right now. So I don't think that heaven and hell are the same kind of living and dying.
Oh no.
Or the living and existing. But I don't think they're exactly physical places. It's just a collective gathering that is in one place, that does not roam and haunt people.
Oh, so you don't, what, oh wait, so do you believe in ghosts?
No.
What?
No.
Why?
Why would I?
Because you've got these places where people experience these like really like terrifying things.
I think people's minds transcend reality.
So does that mean the experiences that they have are not like real?
I would say they're illogical at best.
What about like possessions and that kind of thing? Like, do you believe that people can be possessed?
I believe that people's brain chemistry is messed up.
Because that's not very biblical.
What do you mean?
To believe that people can't be possessed. Because Jesus was casting out demons all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that was... But let me ask, though. Do you believe that was, like, literally, like, an entity inhabiting someone's body? Or do you think, like, it was something else?
I think it was, like, bad thoughts placed in by the devil. Does that make sense? It's not like an actual being stuck in someone.
Really?
I don't...
Like, you don't believe it's possible for, like, an energetic form to come and, like, take over someone's...
No, I think their brain chemistry is messed up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Because I'm on the total opposite end of the spectrum. Okay,
that's fair.
So the reason I bring all this up, and it's really, really interesting. So we've been working a lot, so mindless kind of labor, and I've had a headphone in while I've been working, listening to podcasts.
Every
and
time
stuff.
I try and talk to you, you don't hear me. I just talk to myself. Maybe
well,
I'm possessed.
that's because I've been listening. Oh, don't joke. That's because I've been listening to a podcast quite frequently called the Your Mate Tom podcast, and highly recommend listening to it if you really like deep dive conversations about just anything. But he was interviewing this guy, and I can't remember the name of the guy now, but they were talking about like aliens, and then they started talking about like psychedelics and stuff. And interestingly enough, there are people who have taken like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is like a super potent hallucinogen, and they have like pretty much very consistently with very little deviation reported encountering the same types of entities while they're high. And I will continue and say that they have reported like interacting with what could only be described as like extraterrestrials. And it's been very, very consistent. But the interesting thing about it too is that some people have posited that what they're encountering is of like an insidious nature. Like it's not an alien per se from like a different planet so much as it is like an energetic being from like a different realm, or you could say like a demon or an angel.
See, I think that would be a perfect example of somebody's brain chemistry or thought process being transcended beyond what is reality. I don't think that's a real thing.
Really?
And that, these certain kinds of drugs or hallucinogens that you take, I don't have like a ton of experience with that clearly, but I think that is, they all have like predictable side effects. Like this one's going to make you feel this way.
No,
this
that's
one's,
true, yeah.
And so it's like the consistency there is not in like they're going and like seeing these real things. I think it's their brain being allowed to have the imagination of something else.
That's a good point. I mean, that makes sense because it's like if you stub your toe or something and you're in a lot of pain, like you might take a Tylenol, and the Tylenol is going to reduce the pain, or whatever, like take any drug, for example. I mean, why would psychedelics be any different? So that is a good point. But I guess I very much believe that quote unquote extraterrestrial life has visited this planet, and that's only because I've read things and I've seen things. Like I read this really, really interesting book, and I don't recommend reading it if you're like easily depressed because it's pretty dark, but it's called Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, and he talks about a lot of different stuff. He worked in naval intelligence during like the 70s and 80s, and then he ended up leaving the intelligence community because of the things that he found out, and he was basically like a Julian Assange, or who's the other guy that like leaked the WikiLeaks guy?
I don't know.
But you know who I mean.
Yeah, I don't.
The same kind of deal.
Follow along with that news stuff.
Well, this was a while ago,
yeah,
but it's like the same kind of deal.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like situations that people he encountered who were like, yeah, we got sent out to BFE, Pennsylvania, and there was this giant thing that had like crashed in the middle of the national forest, and it was all very hush hush, and there were tents everywhere, and like we saw these like gray bodies, like these tiny gray, like things like that. And it's like, I mean, it's either aliens or, and I would not discount this, it's like some kind of wacky government thing.
And like
oh, by the way, okay, just to go off on another tangent, did you hear about, so somebody sent me this, okay, I've got some awesome friends through social media who send me the like wackiest, most interesting things, and so half of it,
this is where you get all your ideas, and things you're going to ask me on a podcast.
So half of it I discount, Lord. And the other half, it's like, that's interesting, and if I'm able to, I'll do a little bit of digging on my own to see if it's credible. Okay, so there was some like government compound in a country that I won't name that got raided by an invading force that I also won't name, but this is all very recent, so I'm sure you could figure out who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And there were hundreds of Asian children in this government facility that the government that was being invaded had been experimenting on. I looked it up, and it's real. Like, it actually happened.
You're talking about the conflict that's happened in 2022?
Yeah.
What?
I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. And I looked it up, and it was like the vast majority of these children were Asian, and this government was like doing these crazy experiments with like their DNA and their genetics and all kinds of stuff, and these kids had been underground in this bunker.
That sounds like the show we watched on Amazon.
I'm not even kidding. Like,
what was that
show? On Amazon?
Yeah, the one with the spaceships. Not Star Trek.
Not Altered Carbon. That's the one that I want you to watch next. I can't think of it right now. It's a really good show. Why can't I think of it? At any rate, it's real. And it really blew my mind, and it made me think, growing up, one of my favorite series of books was the Maximum Ride series by James Patterson. And it was about these kids who were basically the product of genetic experimentation by the government, and they had crossed human DNA with avian DNA, so they like had wings and could fly, and it was this whole thing, and they were on the run for the government. It was like a really, really good series that I absolutely loved as a kid. Well, truth is stranger than fiction, always. And I saw that headline, and I looked into it, and from what I can see, like, it's not a hoax.
Yeah, that sounds like the show that had the blue, what was that stuff? Like the blue
protomolecule.
Yeah, the protomolecule that was in the show The Expanse.
The Expanse.
On Amazon.
Those are books too. I really want to read them.
You got a lot of stuff to read and a lot of stuff to watch.
I know.
And
Yeah,
sadly,
I've got a long list.
I've got a lot of stuff to watch with you now. No, not too sadly.
Yeah. I don't know. These are just the thoughts that fill my head. And like a lot of the time I don't bring it up to you, because if I was just constantly hitting you with this stuff, I know you tune out like 90% of what I say, so I have to save it. So I'm just hitting you with it all now. But
I do feel like I've been kind of like hit, like blindsided. We were going to ask each other some interesting questions, and then wham.
Well, but how do you feel about this conversation though as a whole? Like, has this been okay?
Yeah, it's been okay. I won't say that I hate it, and I won't say that it's my favorite episode ever. More because I wish that, like, if we were to talk about religion, it would have been a podcast about religion. Or if we were to talk about, like, our self as a, like, in our part of the earth or something, that'd have been a conversation. And then one about, like, extraterrestrial life. But, I mean, I guess we throw it all in there.
I mean, we could always do that later on down the line. Like, if people listening enjoy this enough and they would like to hear us, like, focus on a specific topic, like, I'm totally down to do that. Like, we always say, hey, if you want to hear us ramble about something, let us know.
Here's our proof that we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do an hour or more.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to hear us go deep on a specific topic, be it, religion or aliens or whatever, like, I am definitely down.
I'll give you my opinion. It may not be exactly yours. Actually, I guarantee you it won't. But I'll be sure of it. One thing, if Rebecca can tell you all this, is that 100% my opinion is, like,
it's very set in stone.
At the end of the day, it is very set in stone. I don't consider it super stubborn, but I consider it, like, very, like, firm in its belief.
Yeah, I think there's been, like, 2 occasions over the course of our relationship where I've seen you, like, slightly alter your view on something, and it has been, like, the bedrock of my reality got shook when that happened.
Wait. Let's throw that in there. What were they?
Well, I don't know if you want to say on air.
Okay.
But it was just, like, things that you firmly believed, and then you, like, altered your perspective just a little bit, and it was like, wow.
If there were a couple, like, what was one of them?
I'm trying to think without, like, overexposing you too much, because I don't want to get into, like...
Was it anything like religion or our beings or, like, diet choices?
Well, no, because you've always been very supportive of like me and my beliefs, but I haven't really seen your particular beliefs change too much.
Okay.
I will say that like I think because of me, like you've been exposed to a lot of like quote unquote new age spirituality.
That's very true.
And in the beginning, you were like, wow, okay. And I think over time, a lot of it is woo, and I will say that very openly. Like a lot of it is just ridiculous, but there are bits and pieces of it that are true, just like there are bits and pieces of everything that are true.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen you kind of open your mind to those a little bit, and like chakras, for example. I think there's a time when you would have been like, energy field, that is complete bunk. And I think maybe on a certain level you still think that. But
I do.
but I think I've seen your perspective of it change just a little bit.
Yeah.
To where you like you'll have conversations about your energy.
Or at least I'll listen.
Yeah, and you'll listen. And so that's been really interesting to see, because I know there was a time when that wouldn't have been the case.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just the evolution of you as a person through time has been really, really interesting.
Well, thank you.
And I've enjoyed watching it.
I'm glad you enjoyed watching me.
It's just cool to watch someone grow and change and evolve, and to grow and change and evolve along with them. Like, it's not easy, and it's not glamorous, and there are a lot of late nights and early mornings and times where it's like, man, this really sucks. But at the end of the day, like, to grow and evolve with someone through a relationship is a really special thing. And it's not for everybody, and I know that, but if you can find somebody who's willing to do that with you, like, that's really, really special.
Yeah, beyond it being like the romanticized like Hollywood relationship thing, it's cool to get to share space with someone and see kind of all of them in their growth, spirit, their growth spiritually. It's really cool. And I've really enjoyed it too. Really enjoyed seeing you grow more into the woman that you've become today. That's cool.
Final question.
Okay.
Before we go on to the last thing that we always do. If you had to pinpoint one thing, just because I'm curious, what do you think is one area that you've seen me like change the most in from like when we first met to now?
I would say, well, when I first knew you, we had very structured lives being in the Navy. And also when we started dating. And so that was kind of your purpose. I've seen your purpose morph into like very interesting things, and like all the interesting bits and pieces that you grew up wanting to do, you've actually gone out and sought those opportunities. Just seeing you go after the things you're passionate about, and the growth that you've gotten with the freedom from having a less structured life. Just seeing all those things that make you happy, you go after them. That's the biggest change.
That's nice. Thank you. That makes me happy to hear.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's probably the most awesome thing I've got to see with you.
I think for you, it's just been watching you learn to be your own person.
That's hard.
Because when you're a child, you get your reality and your life dictated to you by your parents, as you should, because you're a child. And then you went from that directly into, more or less, directly into the Navy, which is super structured, and you're told where to be and how to be, and you can express individuality in a sense, but it's very, very repressed. And seeing you learn how to be your own person, free from any kind of structure, has been interesting, and I know it hasn't been easy.
No, it's kind of sucked in a
That
lot of ways.
it's almost like you're going through like an emotional and mental puberty
Yeah,
in
that's
a
a good way
way.
to put it. Yeah.
And seeing that happen, I mean, yeah, it's been really, really tough. There's been some hard times for sure, but seeing that happen and seeing you grow has been really, really interesting. And I think when it's all said and done, you're gonna be okay.
Thanks. I'm glad you at least have faith in me.
I do.
Yeah. So I think is now a good natural stopping point.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and stop the ramble here,
Okay.
and kind of move into our feel good, because otherwise we could be here for another 2 hours.
Yeah. So we always do this feel good story, and Rebecca got the last couple, but I got this one earlier. And if you guys don't know, I'm not sure when this is going to hit the air, but it's May 8th, 2022. Conveniently, it's Mother's Day. Shout out to all the mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day.
That may or may not be listening. You are appreciated, and you are truly like the beginning of a human being's life, and there is nothing I can say that will ever overstate that. It's an incredible feat to bring life into this world, and thank you for doing it. But this is a post for our feel good story, and it's about the history of Mother's Day. I just thought that it would be nice to do something related to Mother's Day and the history of it, and the fact that it was actually a gesture from a daughter to a mother.
Oh.
So, this says that Mother's Day in the United States is annually held on the second Sunday of May, so therefore the date changes each year. It's time to appreciate mothers and mother figures. Mother's Day origins. The origins of Mother's Day, as celebrated in the United States, date back to the 19th century. Mother's Day in the United States dates back to 1907, when Anna Jarvis wanted to mark the death of her mother, Anna Reeves Jarvis, an activist who cared for injured soldiers from both sides during the American Civil War. Jarvis then organized the first official Mother's Day celebration in Grafton in May of 1908 in West Virginia. After initial success at the local level, Jarvis set her sights on making the day a national affair. She argued that American holidays were too biased towards male achievements and began a writing campaign on behalf of the cause. By 1912, an official Mother's Day was recognized in towns and states across the country, and in 1914 it was officially established as a federal holiday when then-President Woodrow Wilson signed an executive measure. Wilson's measure declared that the second Sunday of May be a national holiday in the United States. Celebrations of mothers can be traced back all the way to the ancient Greeks and Romans, who held festivals in honor of their mother goddesses, Rhea and Clebe. The clearest modern precedent for Mother's Day is the early Christian festival known as Mothering Sunday. And in the UK and parts of Europe, the celebration fell on the fourth Sunday in Lent and was originally seen as the time when the faithful would return to their mother church, the main church in the vicinity of their home, for a special service. So that's the history of Mother's Day, and it all spurs from a mother wanting to mark the significance, a daughter to mark the significance of her mother's life, and I just think that's very fitting.
I did not know that. That is really, really cool.
I didn't either. I went searching for however long, and it was like I need to find something about Mother's Day, and that was super cool.
I spent the day, I feel like every time I got on Instagram, it's really cool because, you know, we're getting older, and so most of our friends are married and having children of their own and stuff, and I felt like every third story that I watched was a mother celebrating her relationship with her children, and I feel like I was just wishing mothers happy Mother's Day all day long. But my friend Rachel actually sent me a really, really lovely message, because I think Mother's Day it's such an all-encompassing thing, you know, and you said it so beautifully, before, thanking mothers for everything that they do. And she said, because we met up with her in Utah, she's a beautiful soul and a beautiful person, and I firmly believe that she is my soul sister in so many ways. But she sent me this message, and it said, you never mentioned babies in your past, but I always make it a point to wish those women close in my life a happy Mother's Day regardless. For whatever and whomever you nurture in this life with your feminine energy, may you know that you are appreciated and loved.
Whoa.
And I just want to extend the same words to anyone, any mother figure who is listening to this, because I know that filling a mother's shoes doesn't necessarily always mean that you physically bring in life. Sometimes it means that you nurture that life. And that cannot be overstated, because there are so many people who do that for people who don't have mothers, or for people whose mothers are indisposed, or for a variety of reasons. So I want to say that because I think that is so beautifully said, and I could say it no better.
That's a nice message, Rachel, if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's what makes us feel good is well, not me having been thanked for being a mother or anything crazy, but to know that, you know, a whole lot of love nurtured me into my existence and who I am today, by various, you know, female figures. It's really important that we show appreciation for all the things that have made us into what we are.
100%. Well, thank you for sitting with me and recording this. I had a lot of fun.
You're welcome. This is probably your favorite episode, isn't it?
Yeah, I really liked it. I hope everybody else liked it too. And please rate us if you haven't already on whatever platform. It really, really, really does help. And it'll help other people find us.
Does it really help?
It really helps.
Does it really, really help?
It does. And if you want to connect with us outside of the podcast, you can follow us at Maybe We're Just Rambling on Instagram. Feel free to ever send us an email if you would like to, at maybewe'rejustRambling@gmail.com.
We started posting reels and travel stuff and just random things about our life on the Instagram. So if you are a stranger to us and you don't know about how we kind of live, might be kind of interesting for you. If you are family and friends, maybe it's another just angle at seeing our lives. And some of it, we try not to be very repetitive, but nonetheless, it's a creative outlet.
It is, 100%. So thank you for sitting with us. Thank you for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you who sits and listens, and we hope that you'll show up again for our next ramble. But in the meantime, I am Rebecca.
And I'm Stuart.
And this has been our ramble.